An engineer mocked an old builder, laughing at him in front of everyone, not knowing this man was a living legend of construction. The sun beat down on the half-built skyscraper, its steel skeleton gleaming against the city skyline. Workers hustled, carrying bricks, pouring cement, and tying rebar. Among them, moving slower but steady, was an elderly man with gray hair, weathered skin, and calloused hands. His name was Samuel Alvarez, though most just called him Old Sam. Sam had worked in construction his entire life. He was respected by the older workers, but to the new generation he was just the old guy. His steps were slow, his back slightly hunched, but his eyes, sharp and calculating, still scanned every detail of the building as if nothing escaped him. That morning, a new face arrived at the site. Daniel Harper, a young, ambitious engineer in his late 20s, fresh out of university. He wore a spotless white helmet, designer sunglasses, and carried himself with the arrogance of someone who believed theory outweighed experience. Daniel spotted Sam struggling with a heavy beam and smirked. "Careful, Grandpa," he sneered loud enough for everyone to hear. "Don't break a hip. This isn't a retirement home." The younger workers chuckled. Sam said nothing, only adjusted his gloves and continued with his task. But Daniel wasn't done. Later, during a safety briefing, he asked the workers a technical question about load distribution. Before anyone else could answer, Sam quietly spoke up, explaining the correct ratio with precision. Daniel laughed mockingly. "Spare us the bedtime stories, old man. Leave the math to those who actually went to college." The laughter echoed louder this time. Sam lowered his gaze. A storm was brewing, but he remained silent. What Daniel didn't know was that Samuel Alvarez was no ordinary builder. Decades ago, he had been one of the masterminds behind the most iconic bridges and towers in the country. His designs were studied in engineering schools, though his name had faded into obscurity after he retired. The man Daniel mocked was, in fact, a legend of construction. The following days, Daniel made it his personal mission to remind everyone of Sam's age. Whenever Sam misheard instructions, Daniel would roll his eyes. "See? This is why we need fresh minds on site, not fossils from the Stone Age." Some workers laughed nervously, others looked at Sam with pity, but none dared defend him. Sam endured the comments in silence. He wasn't angry. He was disappointed that respect had vanished from a profession once built on honor. One afternoon, while reviewing the blueprints, Daniel confidently announced a change. "We'll cut down the reinforcement here," he said, tapping the paper. "It'll save costs and time. Trust me, I know what I'm doing." Sam frowned. His experienced eye immediately caught the mistake. "That adjustment," he warned softly, "will weaken the foundation. The load won't hold once the upper floors are added." Daniel burst out laughing. "Oh, that's rich. The man who still measures with his thumb wants to lecture me about structural integrity. I've got a degree, old man. When was the last time you even touched a textbook?" Sam sighed, lowered his gaze, and simply said, "Do as you wish. But remember, a building never forgives mistakes." The crew followed Daniel's orders. Weeks passed, and the skyscraper grew taller. To the untrained eye, everything looked fine. But Sam noticed small signs, the way a beam vibrated under pressure, the faint cracks in freshly poured concrete, the subtle tilt of a temporary support. He tried warning Daniel again. "If you don't correct it now, it will collapse later." Daniel sneered. "Collapse? Don't be dramatic, old man." The tension reached its peak one stormy evening. The workers were pouring concrete on one of the higher levels when the wind picked up. Suddenly, one of the supports bent under pressure, and a loud crack echoed across the site. Workers panicked. Buckets fell. Someone shouted, "Something's giving way!" Daniel rushed forward, pale-faced, his confidence shattered. The entire section of the floor was at risk of collapsing. And then, through the chaos, a voice cut through. Calm, steady, commanding. Everyone move back, now. It was Sam, the same man they had mocked for weeks. He walked toward the trembling structure with eyes sharper than any measuring tool. He examined the beams, placed his hands on the concrete, and within seconds barked precise instructions. Support it with cross braces, there and there. Use double reinforcement on the south side. Hurry, before the weight shifts completely. The workers obeyed without question. Even Daniel stood frozen, watching the old man transform into a leader. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, silence. The beams held. The vibrations stopped. The danger had passed. The workers exhaled in relief, some even dropping to their knees. They looked at Sam with wide eyes, no longer mocking, but filled with awe. Daniel, however, couldn't stay silent. This was luck, he shouted, his voice trembling. Anyone could have done that. Sam slowly turned to face him. Luck, he repeated quietly. Son, I was solving crises like this before you even learned to tie your shoes. One of the older workers, Jorge, stepped forward, his voice steady. You don't know who this man is, do you? Daniel frowned. He's just some old laborer. Jorge shook his head. No, this is Samuel Alvarez, the man who designed the Riverside Bridge, the Emerald Towers, and half the skyline you see today. The textbooks you studied, they're built on his work. Gasps spread through the workers. Whispers turned into disbelief. Some pulled out their phones, searching his name, only to find articles, photographs, and blueprints signed with his initials. Daniel's face drained of color. His arrogance crumbled in an instant. He had mocked not just a worker, but a living legend. Sam didn't bask in the attention. He simply adjusted his gloves and looked at the trembling beams one last time. Respect the craft, he said firmly. A building is only as strong as the hands and the hearts that build it. From that moment on, no one dared laugh at him again. The storm passed, but its echoes lingered. The workers gathered around Sam, their eyes filled with respect. Even the youngest among them, who had laughed the loudest before, now whispered, I'm sorry, Mr. Alvarez. We didn't know. Sam placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. Respect isn't given because of a name. It's earned by how we treat each other. Remember that. Daniel, however, could barely meet Sam's eyes. His once pristine white helmet now stained with mud, his pride broken. Sam spoke softly. You have knowledge, Daniel. That is good, but knowledge without humility builds nothing. Arrogance is like a weak foundation. One day it always collapses. Daniel swallowed hard. For the first time, he truly listened. Months later, the skyscraper stood completed, tall, proud, unshakable. It was more than just concrete and steel. It was a monument to resilience, humility, and respect. During the ribbon-cutting ceremony, politicians smiled, executives praised the project, and cameras flashed. But the workers, all of them, knew who the true cornerstone of the building had been. Samuel Alvarez, the man who had been mocked, dismissed, and humiliated, was the very reason the tower now touched the clouds. As the crowd dispersed, Sam stood quietly at the base of the skyscraper, looking up one last time. A faint smile touched his lips. He didn't need applause. The building itself was proof enough. Because sometimes the world forgets its legends. But legends don't need to shout. They simply build, and what they build speaks for them forever. Thank you for watching Tales of Triumph. If you enjoyed this story, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And never forget, true greatness may be silent, but it is never gone. See you in the next episode.